Okay, good evening everybody, and a very warm welcome to those people that have joined us in the room today, and also a very warm welcome to those viewers that are watching us live on YouTube this evening. My name is Councillor Steve Tuckwell, and I am chairing this evening's Central and South Planning Committee. Before we get into the main body of the meeting, which is what we're all here for, to look at the application, there's a few domestic items that we need to cover off. And the first of those is that those present in the room and intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed, you will be on YouTube. Those of you that are in the public gallery, you can't be seen, but as soon as you come forward, you will be seen and heard live on YouTube. Could we ask, though, that if you are speaking, that you use your microphone so that it can be picked up as part of the broadcast. There are no fire alarms expected this evening, so in the event that the alarm does go off, we will be directed through the fire exit there. I believe there's another one just behind us here. Follow some of the officers, and the assembly point is at the front foyer. Mobile devices. If I could ask that people kindly turn their mobile devices to either silent or off, so that we don't interrupt this evening's proceedings. On the chairs in front of you in the public gallery, you'll see some very brightly coloured orange feedback forms. We would encourage residents or those participating or observing tonight if you could complete those, because any feedback is always good to help us keep the process improving for these meetings. And for those people that are watching on YouTube, there is a link underneath the broadcast that you can follow, and that will take you through to the council website, and you can leave your feedback online. Okay, I think that's pretty much all the domestics covered off. I'm now going to introduce the people sat around the table this evening. There's quite a few of us, so I'll start with the voting members of tonight's meeting, and I'll start on my left with Councillor Duncan and Councillor Borough, and I think Councillor Dillon is en route. He's en route, okay. And on my right hand side, I'll start with the voting members on the right hand side here. So I've got Councillor Ahmed Walana, I've got Councillor Brightman, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Melvin and Councillor Morgan. So welcome to you all. I've also got around the top of the table here, I've got some officers which are here to give technical advice and support to the voting members this evening. So directly on my right hand side here, I've got the Head of Planning, James Roger. He's supported by Meg Harani, who's the team leader for planning, and we've got Ahmed Akram, who's our highway engineer, who will be supporting us on highway issues this evening. On my left, I've got Liz Penny from Democratic Services, and I've got Nicole Cameron from Legal Services. So we've got a very wide-ranging experts of panel around us. And if Councillor Dillon isn't with us and we've started the next agenda item, then perfect timing.
Just in the nick of time.
Excellent. Perfect timing, Councillor. Perfect timing. No problem at all. So that's all the introductions, that's all the domestics that are covered off this evening. So we've got a few little bits of business to run through before we start to get into the applications themselves. So I'll start off with apologies for absence.
We've received apologies from Councillor Chamdell with Councillor Melvin subbing for him.
And thank you, Councillor Melvin, for subbing for Councillor Chamdell. It's good to have you here this evening. Good to have you here. So item 2 on the agenda is declaration of interest for any matters coming up upon this evening. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Duncan?
I'm not quite sure whether it is a declaration of interest, but on agenda B, Bignell House, there was, due to construction work, the telecommunications equipment serving for the main telecom operators, which includes O2. There was a need to replace it urgently. I think I am an O2 user, and I did have problems with my coverage when I think this happened, but I'm not absolutely sure about the date. But because of that, I think I'm declaring an interest, and I'll stay in the room, but I won't take part in any of the discussion if that's okay. So I'm not sure about it, but being cautious, I think I better declare that.
No, it's right to raise that point, Councillor, and thank you for that. No other declarations of interest, I take it? Okay, so we can move on to agenda item 4, agenda item 3, which is to sign and receive the minutes of the previous meeting, which was on the 16th of January. So are we happy with those? Okay, good. So that takes us on to agenda item 4, which is matters that have been notified in advance or urgent, and that's just been mentioned. We do have agenda item B, which will be considered, and we'll move the running order around a little bit, because obviously we do have part 2 items, but we'll take agenda item B before we get into part 2 of the meeting. So I think that's at item 16, and we'll take it after. Okay.
We agreed both sets of minutes.
Good point, actually. Yeah, just sorry, going back to item 3, there was a second set of minutes from after the council meeting last week, so we're taking those as agreed? Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so we've taken item 4, so now it is obviously to confirm agenda item 5 that we do have 2 parts of the meeting today. We have part 1, which is in public, and just to remind everybody, this is a public meeting, but it's not in public, if that makes sense. It's held in public, but not a public meeting. So there are speaking rights for voting members. There is also speaking rights for petitioners, speaking rights for councillors, and speaking rights for councillors. We won't be able to take comments from anybody in the audience outside of that range of people. Part 2 are enforcement items, and they are held in private. So at that point, the YouTube channel will be disconnected, and we'll politely ask members of the public to leave the room so that the item can be debated in private. Okay. Now that takes us up to the main body of the meeting, which is what we're all here for. So we want to be hearing the applications as they are presented in front of us. So I think then we can start off with agenda item 6, and over to you, Meg.
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to 1 Rangin Close, which is a 2-storey semi-detached dwelling. The application is for a part 2-storey, part single-storey side extension, and members will know that there are standards and requirements to be met for 2-storey extensions. They include setting back the extension from the front, the width of the extension, and taking into account the impact on adjoining occupiers. The proposed extension does in some parts comply. It is set back from the front, the ridge of the roof is set down. However, it does not comply in terms of its width, and because of its orientation to the road, this width is particularly evident and would project in front of the building line by a substantial amount, and therefore this is the reason why the application is recommended for refusal. I can just show members, as members can see, it is orientated at an angle to the road, and so this is the general building line, and as you can see it will project considerably forward of that, and generally we may accept a slightly or a reduced version of the extension, but at the moment its width is particularly evident. If I can just, that's the existing. It does at the moment have a single-storey extension to the rear, and that is proposed an extension to the side and a single-storey element to the rear. So that's the first floor. It goes the extent of the existing dwelling, and then the ground floor below that goes to the extent of the existing extension. I think this is particularly the width is the issue here, and so for that reason we are recommending refusal. If I can just show you the plans. This is the existing extension to the rear, and the site is in or being readied currently for construction works, but as far as we are aware they have not commenced the works on the extensions as yet. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you for that presentation. Now we do have a petition on this particular application. So do we have Mr. Paul Webster in the audience? Hello Paul, would you like to come forward and address the committee? Okay, if you'd like to. You do have the right to address the committee this evening. Only if you want to, you don't have to. Okay, all right, thank you for that. So we do have the opportunity for the applicant or agent to speak as well, so that's Mr. Singh. And Mr. Singh in the... or Mr. Connector? No, okay. Fair enough. I see a ward councillor in the audience. Councillor Fife, you here to speak on behalf of... No? Okay, right, fair enough. Must be my aftershave this evening. Okay, so we've heard the presentation. We don't have any presentations from the petitioner, applicant or ward councillor, so I will throw this one open to members to debate. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Looking at the plans and the comments from the planning officers on this, it is apparent that it's far too big, taking it out of the building line that we currently have around the area, and I'm quite happy to support the officers' recommendations on this.
Okay, thanks you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to second. It's clearly against all policies, and so it's a straightforward refusal, I think.
Okay. Well, I think we won't prolong the debate. I have a mover, I have a seconder. Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, that's unanimous. That application is refused. Okay. Catch one's breath for a moment, and we'll move on to agenda item 7. So over to you, Meg, again.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't do a full presentation because this item has been to committee before. It was reported to the committee on the 4th of December, where it was deferred for a site visit. Members undertook that site visit on the 7th of January. And on page 15, the changes to the report are set out. In general, we've received amended plans which attempt to show the driveway proposed and the width of it. There's an amended highways section which is the gist of the application tonight, and our recommendation has been updated to refusal. If I can just go through the plans. This is the existing, and the application site itself is this, and then the ponds and so on. So the site is in an area of special local character, North Uxbridge, and it does have quite a bit of landscaping in and around the site. That's the proposed layout and the proposed access road to the site. And these are the elevations that are proposed. So this is the site itself. And this is within the site, and then around it, and then this is the proposed access. Now, members will have noted on site visit the issues relating to the width of the access and whether they could get an access which complied. And the addendum sheet, I think, makes it fairly clear that we don't believe that an access of the width required can be achieved, and that even if it could be achieved up to 4 metres wide, that would mean the removal of the hedges that are shown on that photograph, which would lead to other issues about the character of the area. So the reason for refusing the application is the access and the length of the access, and the need to either reverse in or reverse out if vehicles are sort of facing each other. So, and it will serve quite a number of properties, this access, the additional 5 properties that are being proposed. So for that reason we are recommending refusal on highway grounds. We have received an appeal against non-determination, so the recommendation has been amended so that takes that into account, and members are asked to make a decision based on the application would have been refused if they had had the chance to make a decision on it. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you for your presentation on that. So again, we have a petition on this particular application. So I'd like to invite, is it Shona Barrow? Would you like to come forward? Come forward to the table here. While you're settling down, I'll just explain a few things to you so that you're eased into it. As a petitioner, you have the right to address the committee this evening. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation or make your case. The traffic lights that you see in front of you will indicate 4 minutes on green, 1 minute on amber, and when it gets to red, that's your 5 minutes up, and I will bring you to a close. Your 5 minutes will start when you press the little button on your microphone. Yep. So when you're good to go, over to you.
Okay, so my name is Shona Barrow, the petitioner. I'd like to express my real concern on the various issues that justify refusal of this application for more than just one narrowness of the access way between 11 and 15 North Common Road. The site is within the area of special local character but has a markedly different appearance from the frontage street scene that surrounds the common. 4 houses are presently served by the narrow access way and almost has the character of a rural lane. I agree with the conservation officer's comments in the report about the character of the existing cottages, and the presumption must be that development in areas of special local character will at least be neutral, if not actually enhance its amenity, and be sympathetic to the local feature judged with worth. The council officer's report is still reliant upon an appeal inspector's report, and this is used as a precedent for accepting this scheme at 13A. It is argued that the area of special local character should focus on the appearance to and from the common and not be overly concerned about backlands and developments. This may have been a valid approach in considering that site, but it is not appropriate for this site, where the proposal will have a marked visual impact on the immediate environment. The revised officer's report has regrettably not made any review of the appearance of the intended houses, or indeed any references to the house to be built on the side garden of number 12. There, considerable care has been taken to respect the scale and size of the adjacent cottages, with a matching hipped-end roof and first-floor dormer windows. A similar approach has been adopted by the 3 new cottage-style houses that have now been built in the rear of 15 and 16 North Common Road. I see no reason to depart from this as an appropriate style for any development at 13A, where the current 5-house proposal is still a suburban terrace, not reflective of the immediate character or taking a recognition of the biodiversity offered by the pond environment. The submitted scheme relies upon a rectangular turning area and 5 additional courtyard parking spaces separate from the proposed houses that also have their own front garden parking. This is a very urban treatment that would not respect any of the present rustic character, and the extent of tarmac surface would certainly not be sympathetic to the setting of the existing cottages. I consider an additional reason for refusal must be that the proposal is an over-inventive use of the site as it fails to reflect character, scale and elevational style of the immediate housing in this part of the area of special local character. In addition, the developer's ecological appraisal appears to have been done on the basis of the development having already been carried out. The existing biodiverse habitat has already been decimated, and what has been left is scrub land around the pond. Before accepting the loss of the pond, a serious ecological assessment should be carried out. A further reason for refusal needs to refer to its ecological potential in an area of limited diversity, and for that to be a guide to the area for development on the site. In conclusion, we regard the current proposal to be totally unsuited for this site and ask that the application be refused for more than just the inadequate access way width. I'm done.
You done?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, right, we have a slightly different situation arising for next bit, because the applicant, Mr. Gary Wynne, is not able to join us this evening, but he has requested that a statement be read out, and in the interests of transparency and openness, we thought it would be right to have his statement included in part of this evening's proceedings. So, am I going to get timed?
You are.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. I think that's the first, actually. But so when I'm good, I'll take a little swig of water. Here we go. So it's not a long statement, but it's important that we do include this. So when we're good to go, I'll read Gary's statement now. Okay. Having carefully checked the Land Registry Title Deeds plan for the application site, I noted that ownership of the land touches the flank wall of house number 11, running in a straight line to the front and rear. Through the original title plan provided by my solicitor, it is enlarged copy from 1/2500 to 1/2550 scale. It clearly identifies the extent of the ownership which touches the flank wall. This allows the actual width at the front to be 4.6 metres. I noted that one of the officers on site measured the width using a wheel instrument, and it appeared he did not measure the width based on the ownership of the land. The measurements as stated in the report are therefore incorrect. The planning authority must accept the legal ownership via proof of title deed plan and not speculate or assume hearsay on sites. If they dispute, then the local authority must provide proof that our legal document is wrong. Other correction is that the length of the access road from the front boundary to the point where it widens to 4.8 metres measures 67 metres and not 80 as stated in the report. I believe traffic management arrangements can be implemented with mini traffic lights frequently used via crossing very narrow bridge. There are several in the borough that works well for safe pedestrians and traffic. I note the report raises concerns with regards to fire appliance access. The report states that a minimum width of 3.7, but strangely omits that certain fire brigades use small appliances. This is clearly stated in the approved documents. The report states that 14 North Common Road, close to rear elevations of the other properties on Water Tower Close and 45 metre distance from the roadway. Please refer to the location plan in the report Number 14 has no access from Water Tower Close. If the officer sees fit to twisting and fabricating the facts, then it should be fair to point out that the proposed houses are within 45 metres distance measured from the front of number 5 Water Tower Close. It is generally accepted that fire engineering solution is acceptable by providing sprinkler systems and use of fire hydrants. With this solution, and the distance can be increased for fire hose over 45 metres. Also, drivers using fire appliances are capable of driving at speed through the traffic and are able to reversing if necessary with reverse gear. There is no written rule that states that drivers cannot reverse. Furthermore, the existing and proposed houses will have the benefit of the pond. Again, Fire Brigade accepts that this is an option. Strangely, the Highways report fails to mention this benefit. The Highways officer admits to mention BS 9991 2015. The Fire Brigade accepts compliance as part of the engineering solution. Fire Brigade clearly promotes a sprinkler system which has been provided to save deaths injuries. I respectfully urge that you remove this flawed and distorted paragraph from the report. The replaced Highways report includes new policies. This is grossly unfair, as it is not my fault the application had to be deferred and dragged for months. The fact that the application was recommended for approval back in December 2019. The previous Highways report is based on a site visit, and the proof is that he met the resident of 13A. It seems the Highways officer was deliberately instructed to find reason to refuse. The proof is in the revised report that is flawed with errors. And that's the end of the statement. Okay. We have a ward councillor in our midst, Councillor Goddard. So I think I'd invite you to come and join us. Just so that everybody in the room is aware, you have 3 minutes speaking time, and that will be timed on the traffic lights with 2 minutes at green, 1 minute at amber, and then at 3 minutes I will have to bring you to a close. So over to you, Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, can I congratulate you on your first meeting chairing this committee, and I'm sure it's the first of many successful such occasions. First of all, I'm very grateful to the committee and officers for the site visit. I think that was extremely valuable in terms of clarifying fact, and it is clear that we have a solid refusal reason now, which, in spite of the applicant's comments, I think has taken us forward. So, very grateful for that. I find it interesting, actually, that the applicant really seems to be basing a lot of his argument on the approval, the prior approval for the development which was made at number 12 North Common Road. And I think it has to be emphasised that this was very different indeed, because that development was for 1 2-bedroom house. This application is for 5 3-bedroom houses. So the commensurate increase in traffic along this road, and the notion that this could be dealt with by traffic lights, is something that's hard to comprehend. Anyway, leave that as it may. I have to say that I'm fully in support of the petitioner's comments, fully endorse those, and I do put it to members of the committee that actually potentially there are at least 2 other reasons for refusal that I think should be considered here. First of all, yes, of course, this is a backland development. I understand that. But the big issue here is that you have a number of overlooking properties to this development, and what's being proposed is essentially urbanisation. If you look at the conservation officer's comments at the first 3 paragraphs of page 26, it says it all. Okay, it says that this is not in keeping. So that has to be taken apart. Then, of course, we have the ecological considerations, which are at the foot of page 39 and the top of page 40, which again I think are a fundamental concern. That what is being destroyed here is a jewel within an area of special local character. So Members of the committee, I urge you to consider 2 additional potential reasons for refusal. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Goddard. Members, any questions for Councillor Goddard? No? Thank you very much. You can return. Okay, we've heard a lot tonight, and I know a few of the members have actually been to the site and as part of a site visit earlier this year. But I'd like to pass over to James Roger, who wants to just talk through a couple of the issues with this one.
So, as members will have heard, that this has now been a non-determination appeal. So, effectively, should members agree the officer recommendation to refuse, it becomes more a matter of what should the refusal reasons be that we would then defend at appeal. So I'm going to focus on what I think we could defend at appeal. So on pages 18 and 19 of the report, we've got reference to the last appeal decision, which is the very close by sites. And those members that went on the site visit, what we noted was that very close to this application site, that there was another backland development, which we took a measurement on site, and it was a 4.8 metre wide access road to it, so there was no problems with the access to that other site, and 4.8 metres wide is the same width as the adopted highway that exists in the Water Tower Close. I think it's Water Tower Close, if I've got that right. Yes, Water Tower Close, which is also close to the application site. But what's important about the appeal decision is the inspector did look at what is the important characteristics of the area of special local character. And the inspector said, and members will note this at the foot of page 18, that the hedges are important in terms of the semi-rural feel. That's numbered as paragraph 13, and that in paragraph 18, the inspector then says, in summary, the main attribute of this part of the area of special local character is the attractive frontage to North Common Road, and then further says the existing layout of buildings to the rear something of an ad hoc character rather than an orderly one where development and backland locations is absent. So what I think was clear from the site visit is, yes, there was issues with the access, and as members have seen from the report, officers have gone away, reflected on the access issues, and the reason we've got a different recommendation is I think as head of planning it's important that I appropriately, that I try and guide members to make the right decision. Because once a decision is made, that's that in effect, albeit there is a right of appeal, but there's no third party right of appeal. So if something's approved, that's that. So I always take the view it's important to get the right to have the right report, and if we need to change the report through the process, so be it, so long as the right decision is ultimately made. So just turning to so what members would have noted on site is that firstly that there's a very long existing access road, but also where those 5 proposed dwellings are at the top of this slide, it actually drops the land, and that's important because it firstly slightly reduces the visual impact, but it actually I certainly was very comfortable with the neighbour impacts in terms of what we normally would or wouldn't consider acceptable. So I really don't think that that's an issue. In terms of the character issue, it was evident that at the very back of the site, it's a completely different character. There's all sorts of different types of architectural style. There's a large bungalow nearby, and ultimately, I think we would struggle to argue that the proposed terrace, which is actually on quite a large site, has an unacceptable impact on the wider character of the area. There are at least a dozen other backland developments not far away from this particular site, so we're really, our hands are partly tied on some of these character issues. But what was also evident at the site visit was how important the hedgerows are at the front. So it really is a long access. So effectively, as in this photo, you're looking in the far distance almost to where the application site is. So I think one of the first things members need to decide is whether they wish the hedgerows retained. And I think that you might initially think that's an odd thing to say when in this photo it seems almost obvious we'd wish them retained. But what the agents effectively said in the statement read out by the chairman is that members should perhaps be looking at if the hedgerows are removed and the fences are where the agent thinks they are based on land registry details, is that wide enough to enable access to the site? But the position we have as officers, or at least I'm putting forward as a committee, is I don't think we would allow the hedgerows to be removed because they make such an important contribution to the character of the area. And if the hedgerows are retained, and I think there will need to be informative, and there's one drafted in the addendum explaining how we are determining this application, that effectively there is not a wide enough access left given the length of the access and the number of houses it serves, and that's explained in detail in the highway officer comments. I'll leave it at that at the moment, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you for that clarification. So, we've had a lot on this one. Who wants to, I think Councillor Morgan, I saw you indicating there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you, James, on the applicant was contesting the width of the actual slip road, driveway, whatever you wish to call it. Could you clarify who is correct on the width of this particular road?
I'm going to pass to the highway engineer in a minute, but I'm going to rebut a couple of the bullet points said by the agent. So firstly, he says that officers have only measured using a wheel instrument. The highway engineer will clarify in a minute that he's used both a wheel and a digital instrument for precise measurements. That's important because if we're using a digital instrument and it says 3.0016, then we are going to quite a high degree of accuracy here. And then there's a point mentioned about traffic lights. Well, this is an area of special local character, so we aren't going to be. I'm not going to be recommending a condition or a legal agreement involving traffic lights because it would harm the area of special local character. There are some traffic lights for development off Honeycroft Hill where there's a bridge and there's some traffic lights to go into a site close to Hillingdon House Farm, but those traffic lights are on a bridge that's kind of got lots of underground trains going over it. It's much more urban in character than this site. And then there's references to fire appliances and building regulations. It's normally taken that you determine based on the standard fire engine that has a 45 metre long hose and the building regs refer to a 3.7 metre width. So I think as officers, our position is we're satisfied that we can that there is enough to be concerned about fire safety, and that ultimately it's for the applicant to get correspondence from the fire brigade saying they would be happy with a sprinkler system or some other method to address the obvious concern. And I don't think it's for us to second guess what the fire brigade might accept. So I'll pass to the highway engineer, I think, just to add any further comments.
Thank you, James. To answer the councillor's question, in the applicant statement, he refers to the land registry plan. The actual width of the access at the front is 4.6 metres wide. That's incorrect. If you look at the land registry plan, the actual width of the access is 4.07 metres at the front, and then slightly narrows to 4.06 at the start. So that's incorrect. I'd also like to point out, I actually went on site today with the planning officer, and we measured the access width with the laser measuring tool. And whilst I got 3.9 metres, that was more in connection with the actual land registry document. So the access width is not 4.6 metres, it's 4.07 or 4.4 metres to be precise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duncan?
Could you tell me whether that includes the hedgerows? I'm still trying to get down to a definitive statement about this width, because that could undo us all at appeal if the inspector just goes out and has it measured. So we need to be clear, because that's what we're basing the decision on. So first of all, could you just let me know what the measurement is, including the hedges, and then without the hedges, please?
So including the hedgerow, It's at the moment it stands at 3.2 metres, I believe. Without the hedgerow, it's 4 metres, or 3.9 is what I measured on site with the electrical measurement tool. With the land registry plan, it's 4.07. That's minus the hedgerow. Thank you.
So, the thing is, I think, yes, we do agree. Well, this is a question as a committee we need to satisfy ourselves on, I think. Do we all agree that the hedgerows are an important part of this area of special character? Does it add to it, and would we want those hedgerows protected? If we do, then that has to be part of this decision, I would suggest, but I would take legal advice on that, because we're basing it on a reduced width because of the hedgerows, and we're saying, yes, we do want to keep the hedgerows, that will reduce the width, and that's why this is going forward, because otherwise, if we accept that the hedgerows can go and it's then a distance of 4 metres, then this overcomes other objections that have been raised, and I don't think, certainly I, and I hope other committee members wouldn't see it in that way. I do have concerns about access for refuse vehicles, removal vans, things like that. So that if you're going to have, on occasion, very large vehicles going down there, they're going to do damage to the hedgerows anyway. And to try and reverse, I passed my driving test many years ago, but I think even I, after all my decades of driving, might be hard pushed to reverse. This is just fantasy land, really. I'm sorry to use those words, but it is unrealistic to expect in the normal course of event vehicles in a residential setting to be reversing these kind of distances. So I don't know how we would move this forward. I'm very happy to go with the officer's recommendation. I don't know if we need, I noticed that we talk about vehicle and pedestrian safety, because there wouldn't be width enough for pedestrians to be separate, particularly somebody pushing a pram, somebody in a wheelchair. It makes it very narrow, very unsafe, so hopefully that would cover the arguments that one would make about those issues. But do we need to say anything about refuse or delivery vehicles as well? Would that strengthen it in any way?
It'll be difficult to sustain that appeal, I feel. I think, given that the access already serves existing dwellings, I think in the event if an inspector was to look at it, he'd just simply say, well, there's already 5 dwellings or 4 houses at the end of this site, at the end of this access, another 5 will just be an existing situation, really. So I think that will be a harder case to defend that appeal scenario.
James, did you want to come in?
I believe that the existing bungalow at the far end, there is an arrangement for refuse that exists for that property. So sometimes people there are sort of bespoke arrangements that exist in refuse collection. I think our point is that there is no bespoke arrangement on fire safety, in effect, unless the London Fire Brigade basically put in writing they're happy to agree it, and we don't have that. So
I shouldn't think the London Fire Brigade is going to agree any diminution of any fire safety standards anywhere. That's my view, anyway.
Yeah, just I've got a couple of councillors who want to make a comment, but I just want to pick up your point about hedgerows and see if there's anything we can do with that.
I think Councillor Duncan's suggestion of receiving everybody's views on these hedgerows is actually very important. I think if we are faced with an appeal situation, which it currently looks like we are, I think you need to be clear that those hedgerows are of importance in terms of character and appearance of the area, and I think that would be good to clarify, and it would bolster the refusal reason, because you would be saying, if you agreed, that we cannot do without them, and therefore the measurements really should be taken, including the hedgerows.
Would that then need to be reflected, the proposed narrow width, etc., the wording of that reason for refusal? We somehow need to put in there the retention of the hedgerows, because otherwise it could be argued, well, just remove those and then you haven't got this. It falls, doesn't it?
I mean, your comments are recorded and would form part of the appeal decision, but if you wanted to bolster the refusal reason by putting in clarification, you could. I believe an informative was going to be added, I think, in the addendum.
So the addendum has an informative. It tries to clarify the situation in terms of but if I'd like to request delegated authority to tighten it up in conjunction with the legal officer if the recommendation is carried forward, because I'm conscious that Meg G, you drafted it, didn't that Nicole hasn't had input into that, and I'd like the opportunity to have her input.
Let's get a view from a couple of other councillors I know are eager to speak. So, Councillor Brightman.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, I was going to make the same point as Janet made regarding the hedgerows. Is it possible for hedgerows to have TPOs, or is that only for larger trees?
It's linked to protected species of trees. I don't know what the species of hedgerows are, and I'm not sure that it is actually covered. I think it is only trees, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't seen a hedgerow protected before, but I could be wrong on that. But I don't know what the species are, so I can't comment on the legal status of that.
Okay. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We're looking at an area of special local character. It goes onto the common. It's green. If we started removing hedges and putting up fences, what's next? Are we going to put up concrete walls and such like? We'll start losing that character.
Yeah,
Keeping the hedges is vital. We need the green. I'm reluctant to go down the area of, oh well, let's clear all the hedges out and putting up concrete fences. No, keep the hedges.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dillon.
Yeah, I think, Chairman, I really just concur with everybody else. So we strive to keep trees on any development, or they are replaced when they are cut down for reasons. But here, cutting them down and replacing them, you'll be ending up with the same width eventually. So it'd be pointless. We keep it because it's part of the street scene, special local character, and I think everyone on the committee would probably agree with everything that's been said by everybody. So it's time to move, I think, a decision.
I should explain why we were both whispering. We're just talking about whether actually the hedgerows could be a second reason. So perhaps if Meiji wants to explain his thoughts on it.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's quite clear from the discussion between members that they consider the hedgerows to be an important feature as part of the area of special local character. And what's not clear and what has not been submitted as part of the proposal is an arboricultural implication statement or a method statement to show that the hedgerows can be retained and the access road can be provided. It is clear that for us that we believe that the hedgerows would need to be severely cut back or removed to provide the access road width that's required. And if that is the case, then the loss of the hedgerows would be a reason for refusal. So what I was suggesting is that we have a second reason, which is along the lines of it has not been demonstrated that the existing trees, hedgerows can be retained and the width of the access road required can be provided, and then relating to the policies that are in the new local plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So I think Councillor Morgan.
As you already had a proposal from Councillor Duncan to accept the officer's recommendations together with the amendment, I will second it.
Okay, so I think just to clarify then, we've got a mover and with the amended reason.
Yeah. In terms of the reason Reg G is proposing, I think when you decide whether you're happy to delegate it to me as head of planning to come up with the final wording, or whether you'd wish it to be referred to the chairman and Labour lead to see the final wording.
Well, I'm happy to delegate to, because we're in an appeal situation now, happy to delegate it to head of planning and legal to confer
So
on that.
I just want to be absolutely clear that members are aware what's been moved and what's been seconded. Are we all happy with that? Yes. So can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, that's unanimous. The application has been refused.
As per the
Yeah.
non-determination.
As per the non-determination, yeah. Okay. Draw breath for a couple of moments. We'll let people leave the room while we go on to agenda item 8 of tonight's proceedings. Okay. Meg, over to you for agenda item 8, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is another item that has been before members, so again a short presentation. This application was deferred at the committee of the 6th of November for additional information. We have been back to our policy colleagues and their views are set out quite clearly on page 48, 47 and 48. The gist of that is that this isn't inappropriate development. It does comply with the MPPF and therefore there isn't a requirement to provide very special circumstances. However, should members decide that very special circumstances are required, there has been some provided by the applicant and they are set out in summary on pages 49 and 50. But your officer's view is that this is a reduction of a previously developed site, a reduction in the overall built development of a previously developed site, and therefore it isn't inappropriate development, and we believe that it complies with the government guidance on green belts. So for that reason we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, or some members will remember this was debated at length back in the November meeting. So I'll open it up to debate. Councillor Brightman, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. I move officers' recommendations. There's no reason at all to not allow this change of development change of use as far as I can see. Stables being reduced to a category. It's enabling them to continue their business and not really having any kind of major impact on the green belts or surrounding street scene.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Brightman. Councillor Dillon?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm satisfied now. I was sitting on the fence last time, but now that we've got the clarification, I'm happy that we can move forward.
Are you okay to second that?
Yeah, I'm very happy to second that.
Thank you. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, yeah, it's unanimous. That application is approved. Okay, swiftly on now to agenda item 9.
Thank you, Chairman. It's probably easier if I go directly to the photographs on this, and you'll be able to see the existing chiller unit, and the replacement is in fact no different to that, so it has very little impact on the green belt. It's well within the developed area of Brunel, and so as you can see, if I can show you behind Councillor Birra's head, is the chiller unit there, and then the replacement. So it is very similar. It's this bit there, and if I go directly to the photographs, it is pretty ugly, but it is a replacement, so and it will look no different to what you've got there at the moment. So we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Morgan?
I'd like to propose we accept the officer's recommendations.
Okay, do I have a second? Councillor Berry, happy to second that?
I'm quite happy to second.
Okay, show of hands please. That's unanimous. That application is approved. Okay, swiftly on. Agenda item 10, a monopole.
So we do have one, and members might be surprised, but it is recommended for approval. It is a replacement of an existing on a different site. So this is the current site at the moment of the Monopole, and this is the proposed site, about 150 metre difference between the two. When you see the photographs, the visual impact is pretty similar. This is the existing and the proposed, the existing Monopole, and then the proposed. So members have seen pretty much these plans before. You will note that there is a reduction in the number of cabinets and the size of cabinets that are proposed with this particular one to previous applications that members may have considered, and that is another reason for accepting it. The number of cabinets and the size does lead, in fact, to a reduction in the overall uptake of the pavement in the width. So it is a slight improvement, if you like. This is the existing site, and then the proposed site. So in terms of the visual impact, it's pretty similar with a tree background and the cabinets that are proposed there. So we're comfortable with the visual impact, and therefore we are recommending approval in this case. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. We've also got an addendum to this.
The addendum relates to the colour, and the requirement is that they submit details of the colours. They are proposing grey, but I think that may stand out more than another colour. So I think the suggestion is that it's a darker green of some sort.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brightman, you indicated?
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just clarify, is that are the boxes going to be on the pavement or actually on the green space against the trees? Because otherwise that pavement's going to be rather narrow.
They are on the pavement, similar to the existing. So they are situated in that manner. So the pavement width would be no different to the width of the pavement as it is at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any other members? Move this one forward. Councillor Ahmed Boulana.
I would like to move with the officer's recommendations.
Okay. Do I have a second? Councillor Melvin, do you second that? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Show of hands. That's unanimous. That application is approved. Okay. Agenda item 11. Monopole.
More telecoms. These are on a fairly high building, and they are replacements of existing. They are slightly bulkier than the existing, so they will have a slightly more visual impact than the current, but they would be in longer term view. So if I can just possibly just show you the elevation. So that's the existing and the proposed. They're no higher, they are bulkier, as you can see from that. The photographs will illustrate the visual impact that the current ones have, and from the distances that these photos are taken, the appearance will be very similar. So for that reason we are recommending approval. You will not see them the closer you get to the building. So it's from far distances that the views will be affected slightly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Open it up to members. Councillor Chapman. Okay, we have a mover. Councillor Melvin, you happy to second that? So we have both moving and seconding. Can we take a show of hands, please? Okay, that's you.
I've just realised I have an interest in this, so I'm abstaining.
Okay, all right. But we have majority, so that application is approved. Okay. Agenda item 12.
Thank you, Chairman. This relates to 197 High Street. Members will probably know it as the old Greg's unit close to the Civic Centre. That has been vacant for some time now, and the application is recommended for approval. It does comply with policy in terms of the percentage within the primary frontage. It leads to a slight reduction from 71.4 to 71.5 to 71.4. Members will note that there's another item following this, and if both items were to be approved, then the reduction will be to 71.1, but still within the 70% threshold. So it complies with that part of the policy. However, it does lead to a non-retail frontage of greater than 12 metres. Members will know that there's, I think, a pizza place next door, then you've got Wagamama's, then you've got Nando's. So there is quite a frontage of non-retail, but we are satisfied that in this particular location this is acceptable. So for that reason we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that. So open it to members to comment. Councillor Dillon?
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I'll move officer's recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Morgan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Before.
There was an addendum to this that I...
Good point.
Sorry, I was about to hopefully come in there. Before members do go to a vote, there is an additional condition recommended relating to litter and the submission of details for dealing with that. Thank you, Chairman.
Part A 5 use, which involves takeaways, so that's why we're adding that.
Okay. Good spot, Councillor Morgan. Are you happy to second?
I am happy to second, and I'm just wondering where I'm going to get my vegetarian sausage rolls from.
I think there's a Greg's further down there. Don't worry about that. Okay, so we have it moved, we have it seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please? So that's unanimous. That application is approved. Thank you. Right, so another retail application.
Yeah, this one is
13.
Fully within the Into Centre, so it's inside the centre, and in fact this one fully complies. So there's in terms of the percentages that I outlined previously, and also it doesn't lead to a non-retail frontage of more than 12 metres, so this is fully compliant with the policy, and for that reason we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, no, thank you, and it's good to see a vacant shop put to good use as well. So can someone start me off on this one? Councillor Dillon?
Yeah, I think Councillor Morgan would probably better off going for a facial treatment rather than a vegan sausage roll. So I'm happy to move. Recommendation.
You're happy to move that, yeah? I second. Councillor Beer, are you happy to second that? I'm happy to second it. Excellent. Okay, can I have a show of hands, please? Right, that's unanimous. That's agenda item 13 approved. So now we depart from the published agenda and we go to agenda item 16, which is part B, which was asked for us to consider. We've accepted, so I'll put it over to Meg to take us through. Or James, you're going to take us through this one.
I'm actually going to try and go quite quickly to the photos. So these are the plans, but as this is in situ, so this is the installation. So what happened was that Bignell House was a very large number of antennas on the roof covering 4 of the main operators and providing their coverage for Useley Town Centre. When the building was demolished, clearly that created a major issue, And what they've did is they invoked a part of the permitted development rights that actually enables you to erect an emergency mast without planning permission. So at the moment, that mast has no planning permission, which is obviously very unusual. We don't normally have emergency masts. So what this is seeking is a temporary consent for 18 months. I would stress that condition 3 does require it to be removed when it's no longer required. So what's happening is we are in discussions with the operator's agent in terms of permanent options, and if those take 6 months, 12 months to get an approval, clearly that would mean that the temporary mast disappears before the 18 months. That's the point of condition 3. Clearly, that's a recent photo, so the construction site has a long way to go, so whether it be completed within 12 or 18 months is a moot point in itself, but even if it were, hopefully we'll be coming to this committee with permanent options for you to consider, but I think the right thing to do, is to grant the 18 months, because there's literally only a week to run on what they're allowed to do under permitted development for an emergency mast, and the operators don't want to be in a position where it's technically unlawful. Hence, I asked the Chairman if this could be taken as an urgent item. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so open to members. Councillor Brightman.
Thank you, Chairman. I would move the officer's recommendation. I think earlier Councillor Duncan was saying that, she's sort of pretty dependent on that thing working. But you're not alone. All residents in Useley, West Drayton, that kind of area will need telecoms, so it makes sense that they're allowed to keep it up for now.
Okay, so you're moving that, yeah?
Yes.
Councillor Ahmedwala.
Yeah, Chairman, thank you. 18 months length of time it's perfectly all right, and I second.
Okay, so we have it moved, we have it seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay, that's unanimous. The application is approved. Thank you. Okay, so that's all of part 1 now concluded. We'll wait for the YouTube feed to be